Hello and welcome to what I hope is the first of many Retro Achievements playthroughs on the channel. If you don't know what Retro Achievements is, the short of it is that Retro Achievements is a website and emulator integration that lets you earn achievements in older games created by other members of the gaming community. For more detail regarding Retro Achievements specifically, please check out my upcoming video on the subject, which will have a link below when released. The intention of this series is mostly to show off some older games, but with a hopefully different spin on them when compared to a normal playthrough. Keep in mind that this is just for entertainment purposes. This video is not a guide. If you want to suggest any games for future videos, please head to retroachievements.org and make sure that there's an active set for your game of choice before leaving your suggestion in the comments. With all that said, here's what you can expect from today's video. In part 1, I'll go over some of the history of today's selected game and why I chose it. In part 2, I'll try to make some guesses as to what we can expect from the game's achievement set before having looked at it. Part 3 will be the playthrough itself, and then part 4 will be a short review of both the game and the set. If you're only interested in the gameplay or overall review of the set, then please use the provided chapters and timestamps below to skip ahead. So, I imagine that a lot of people who click this video may have a good idea about the game at hand. For those that don't, Tomba is a platformer game from 1997, released for the PlayStation 1. In it, you control the titular pink-haired character, Tomba, who's on a journey to recover his grandfather's bracelet from evil pigs. If the premise sounds strange, then I assure you there is more to come. As Tomba, you explore what I believe is fair to call a 2.5D world, where Tomba and most other characters are presented with 2D pixel art, but much of the environment is rendered in 3D or pre-rendered backgrounds. Gameplay is mostly a side-scrolling affair, but you're occasionally able to move between the background and the foreground, and the world will sometimes twist and turn as you move along the 2D plane. There are also a couple hub areas where the game shifts to an isometric perspective. As you progress, you're able to freely explore the world in a sort of Metroidvania style, meeting a variety of NPCs who offer quests, and find different equipment and abilities for Tomba. On a personal note, I had both Tomba 1 and 2 on demo discs when I was younger, and I played them dozens of times apiece. In the nearly 30 years since then, I've managed to play the full retail release of Tomba all the way through maybe twice. Once on the PlayStation in the late 2000s, and then again digitally from the PlayStation Network around 2020. Tomba seemed like a good game to start these videos off with, not just because I've been itching to replay it, but because I'm familiar with it. I know it should be fairly straightforward to complete, and therefore hopefully a good demonstration of retro achievements. Additionally, Tomba got an enhanced port announced for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and PC, known as Tomba Special Edition. Because this script took me so long to write, the game is already out as of August 1st. With any luck, this video will help to give Tomba Special Edition a bit more exposure and vice versa. The original 2 Tomba games were well received, but didn't sell well enough to keep the developer, Whoopee Camp, afloat. In the years following, it's become something of a cult classic, causing physical copies to become very scarce and expensive. The digital version I mentioned before is also limited in its accessibility. I think it's only for the PlayStation 3 to be honest. This remaster should help alleviate that, and more sales of Tomba Special Edition could translate to the second game, and who knows what from there. Really, I'm just excited that Tomba's back again, and this video is my celebration of that fact. So, for part 2 of this video, I wanted to try something a bit unorthodox. This section of the script that I'm reading to you now, and everything prior, was written well before looking at the achievement set or starting the playthrough. I did this because I think it'll be fun to try and guess what sorts of achievements we'll have to contend with ahead of checking the actual list. By referencing the Tomba fandom wiki to refresh my knowledge of the game, I was able to come up with 24 different predictions that I think could potentially be achievements in the actual set. I've created a bingo card and assigned every prediction a number that I randomized to determine their position on the card. I tried to come up with a good mix of ideas that are safe and/or broad versus specific and limited. Each one is conditional, so I'll put a stamp on a space when I obtain an achievement that fulfills the condition specified. Green stamps are for complete, red for misses, and yellow for ones that are kind of arguable. Some of them are going to be a bit ambiguous unless I type a paragraph for each space, so I'll just have to elaborate as we go along. Obviously, every game has an achievement for beating it on Retro Achievements, so that's the free space. Other than that, it's really just guesswork on my part, as well as trying to get into the head of the set authors. It could go any number of ways. After finalizing the bingo card, I went ahead and looked at the achievement set to make sure I had a game plan going forward. I don't like having to do multiple playthroughs if I don't have to. Tomba has 53 total achievements, with 11 of them being marked as missable. This means that there wasn't a lot of room for error in my predictions. This also means that I more or less now know the bingo results, but I'll reveal those as we go along. At the time of writing, there are over 3,400 users who have started the Tomba set, and at the time of starting my run, there are over 200 users who have mastered the set by obtaining every achievement. The most common achievement has a 95% unlock rate, with over half of those being earned on soft core mode. It's also a progression achievement that's unlocked extremely early on, even within the demo of Tomba that many might be familiar with. The rarest achievement has just about a 10% unlock rate, which equals 335 players, 248 of them being on hardcore. While the rarest achievement is not marked as missable, the next rarest in the list is marked as missable, with an 11.8% unlock rate among players, totaling 408 users. So then, considering we'll be playing on hardcore mode where we have no access to save states, rewind, or slowdown for the most authentic and challenging experience, will we find ourselves able to join those who came before and earn a mastery in Tomba? Will we complete even a single line of our bingo? Let's find out.
It's the way you and Tomba conquer them all. Together. Tomba loves you. And by golly, America loves Tomba.
PlayStation.
Tomba's opening cutscene shows our heroic character living his best life in the wilderness, before spotting some evil pigs raiding a man's cart. Tomba jumps into action and makes a good showing against the pigs, but is unfortunately knocked out, where they steal his grandfather's golden bracelet. Tomba runs into the distance and performs an excited jump before a freeze frame, and then we're brought to the title screen. Upon starting a new game, we'll see Tomba jumping from vine to vine before dropping down into the Village of All Beginnings, where the game itself can finally begin. If you thought that Tomba's design with the bright pink hair and green shorts was odd, then don't worry, they waste no time lampshading this fact in the very first dialogue of the game. We're instructed to go to a small hut on top of a hill to get some more direction. The man thinks twice about asking the how and why of Tomba's pink hair before departing, and we acquire our first new quest, or event as they're called in this game, the 100-year-old wise man. Reading the small wooden sign next to us informs us of our location and lets us save. They also serve as checkpoints if we lose a life. Pressing triangle opens up the inventory where we can use items, read their descriptions, and change equipment. Tomba starts the game with a blackjack, which is sort of like a flail but on a springy rope instead of a stick. We won't actually use this weapon much because Tomba's primary method of attack is actually biting things. When you jump on an enemy like these coma pigs here, Tomba does a strange sort of mount onto them, where he's actually supposedly biting them. When jumping onto pig enemies, we'll see a bar appear with each one that we bite, which is a leveling system. We're going to be making sure to level ourselves up when given the opportunity, as there are items gained later on when we reach level 10 for the 3 different colors, but no benefits prior to that. You're also going to notice some numbers appear on screen pretty frequently throughout this playthrough. These are adventure points, or AP. Whenever we acquire or complete an event, throw enemies into objects, or pick up certain items, we gain AP, which is used to unlock a few things throughout the game. It's a bit preemptive, but there's no hiding from the fact that a challenge indicator appears every time we earn AP, and it's going to be popping up for most of the run. This is for the achievement Adventurer Millionaire, for earning 1 million AP. And because I had predicted this on the bingo, we're actually going to go ahead and stamp that sucker on the bingo card right now. I would have liked to hold on to this reveal for much longer, but challenge indicators as a whole are very useful to keep enabled, so it's just unfortunate that this one was spoiled so early because of the frequency that we earn AP. Moving along, we're going to make sure to step on every one of these accordion-like platforms called pump rocks as we proceed. They appear in basically every area, and when you step on them for long enough, you see some water shoot out, and the color darkens a bit. I recall from previous playthroughs that this is required for all of them in a side quest that isn't revealed until much later. You may not even realize that pressing them down does anything, which can be very annoying when you realize you have to backtrack through the entire world again. This is why I made a prediction for it, but no challenge indicator reveals that they either aren't tracked individually or we'll have to wait until we complete the event entirely to know if I made the right call. Either way, we have to make sure not to miss any before then. Because of my familiarity with this area from the demo, I can remember all the strange little things in it pretty well. We clean up house by grabbing a frog in the weird purple grass to get another event, spray some peach flower gas onto a pig for another, and climb a tree to meet Charles the monkey for yet another. Both Charles and the man from earlier make more comments about how sickeningly pink Tomba's hair is, and we ignore them both so we can break into a garage of sorts with a deflated cart, and a cutscene showing off some landscape that I guess is supposed to be a racetrack. We won't get to interact with any of this until much later, so we head back outside. Trying to enter the other door on the house accomplishes nothing, but we're able to grab the wall and climb the background to enter the other layer of the play area. This is one of the features that I think makes Tomba so fun and unique as a platformer, because it's very easy to do and allows you to interact with different things, which makes exploring a lot more fun. Trying to walk to the right gets us another event, where the fog prevents us from going any further, and the game explains that we can use items to clear puzzles like this. Then we destroy a helpless egg and eat the baby chick inside. There's a chest in this tree that's locked, so we proceed all the way left to obtain the Furious Tornado from a mailbox in front of this mansion. Heading back to the fog, we can use the tornado from our inventory to trigger a cutscene and reveal the next area. When the cutscene ends, we complete the event and earn our first achievement of the game, the first event of many to come. And hey, would you look at that? I had a feeling this would be one, so I put it on the bingo card. To be honest, this one was a bit of a softball since it's the first obvious progression roadblock, but don't worry, I didn't pick too many like that. Carefully jumping over the instant kill pit here, we can move further up the hill towards our objective. Here, we'll get another event by talking to this shadowy figure, a boy named Yan, next to the doorway to another area. He's a lot easier to see on modern displays than he was on CRTs back in the day. Beyond him is the Old Pond, where we can deliver the frog from earlier. If we try to open the AP box, we get an event to remind us for later, as it requires a whopping 100,000 AP. We can try to cross the pond on the turtle, but a man will try to drown us for our efforts, laughing at the fact that we don't know how to swim. At least he gives us some bananas. We do a little bit of platforming and pole swinging for some sweet AP, eat another baby chick, find a fancy looking locked chest, and then return to Charles from earlier. Our newly obtained bananas are the perfect treat for him, so he treats us to a new ability, the Animal Dash. With that, we've cleared another event, obtained the achievement Animal Dash, and would you look at that, another green stamp. We're off to a great start with the bingo, but I'm hoping to keep an even pace of checks as we go along. Another baby chick, and we can clearly see a door here, but it looks like we can't get through. Up the hill some more, and we climb a strange rock structure to claim a fourth baby chick. Here we find another AP container of sorts for 50,000, which would also trigger the event if we missed the one at the pond. Finally at the top, we find the hut of the 100-year-old wise man, which completes the event. He's currently concerned with the eggs we've been seeing on our way here, as the red coca birds have apparently taken to stealing them. He tasks us with retrieving the chicks from the eggs, which we've been diligent enough to collect already. When he asks where they are, Tomba spits them up from his stomach.
Oh no, my chicken nuggies!
This moment has always stuck with me over the years, as it's pretty funny, but also a bit of Ludo narrative, in which the mechanics of the game are expressed in a way that anchors it to something real, even if completely absurd. People have joked for years about where Link from The Legend of Zelda keeps all his items, when they could have easily avoided the problem altogether by just having them sit in his stomach. I think Kirby does this in one of his games too. Thoroughly grossed out, the old man changes the subject to our missing bracelet, giving us a cutscene. Besides the regular pigs that we see, there are apparently 7 evil pigs who use magic to transform the lands and steal large amounts of gold, including Tomba's bracelet. The next bit of advice from the old man is to make some friends, which we of course accept enthusiastically. He also means to give us a 100-year-old bell, but misplaced it, and gives us a 100-year-old key instead. Although he asks us to find the bell and return it, he will never mention it again, even if we do so. With that, we get yet another achievement, the 100-year-old man, and we can now open 100-year-old chests, which are the plain wooden ones. 100 years. Wow, that's a long time. Our final instruction from the old man is to learn more about the evil pig bags from the dwarf elder, giving us another event and dropping a rope to the next area. Before we head there, one last trip through the village again to open the chest we'd seen along the way, netting us a +1 to vitality, some charity wings, and the 100-year-old bell I mentioned earlier, which also gives us an achievement of the same name. We'll find Yan of the Hidden Village now out from his shadowy hiding place, completing an event and replacing it with a new one. Yan is going to hide in 4 places throughout the game, tasking us with finding him. This event is important to keep in mind, as it directly translates to the second game, Tomba 2, and completing it too quickly will actually lock us out of completing another event, and therefore a 100% save, which happened to me in both of my previous playthroughs. Because this event is critical to keep track of, I predicted it for the bingo, but we'll just have to see how it unfolds later. The charity wings are a consumable item that we can find in limited quantities throughout the game, letting us fast travel to any location we've already been to. The bell item is similar, but its usage is infinite, and it only brings us to one location, the old man's hut, which is convenient now, since we can use it and proceed to the Dwarf Forest. The first area of Dwarf Forest is known as the Forest of 100 Flowers. It's called that, but you'll be hard-pressed to understand why for almost the entirety of the game. While the first area had a few fantastical creatures and plants, it seemed fairly average otherwise. But here, the foliage of the trees seems to be like gigantic gumballs or balloons or something, giving the forest a very surreal aura. We'll quickly run into some dwarves who speak in nothing but grugs and glubs, which starts an event for us to learn the dwarf language. Like any amateur linguist, Tomba knows there's only one practical solution to learning a new language quickly, which brings us to today's sponsor, biting people. Yes, that's right, Tomba needs to jump on the heads of some dwarves and give them a good old chomp in order to learn the dwarf language. As we travel through the thick leaves, we can slide around and reveal leaf butterflies for another event, and we'll be making a habit of collecting them every time we pass through here. Navigating the final part of the forest is slightly tricky, as there are large spiked stalks everywhere, and Tomba's mid-air speed is so high that it can become dangerous if we're not careful. Past the sign, and we'll enter our first isometric hub area, the Dwarf Village. While we still can't understand everyone, there is one more dwarf to bite in the Elders area that will let us master the language and unlock another achievement, Beginner's Dwarf Language. What does he say? I'm regri wergnuid aberger my free girds. Here we'll learn that the forest flowers have wilted away, and the trees have mutated, explaining the odd appearance. A group of dwarves are also missing, and we've been asked to assist in finding them. The townsfolk will give us more events and clues, and then we're free to return to the forest again, though with some noticeable differences from last time. This is a bit of an oddity even within this game, as I can't recall another time that an area has so many changes to it other than when cleansing it of a curse. For whatever reason, the spiked stalks from before are now covered in pigs and what I can only assume is scoops of ice cream. At least that's how they've always looked to me. We'll ignore that oddity for now and go through the previously barricaded door to the watchtower. Here we'll find plenty of seesaws and poles to swing on. The seesaws can be rotated by Tomba's weight or by hitting them with a weapon, though there are dangerous spider enemies crawling all over them. We'll grab a crystal ball above the door we entered and make our merry way through the area, keeping our eyes open for dwarves, who seem to be trapped in these giant cotton balls that the game calls spores. The watchtower is fairly fun to navigate, making good use of Tomba's ability to wall climb and swing around, with the spiders providing an interesting obstacle to work around, since they can also climb walls and are dangerous to jump on if they're flipped over. There is one very dangerous area though that seems to be a pit of spikes, seemingly made up of dozens of spider corpses. Ugh. Next to these spikes though are our first new set of pants, the jumping pants. These snazzy purple threads actually allow Tomba to jump and run slightly faster, though it looks a bit gauche with his pink hair. Just ahead, we'll uncover a secret destructible wall that alludes to further mysteries, and awards us with an event. If we climb to the top, we'll find the actual watchtower that the area is named after. On top of that tower is a telescope, which was somehow misplaced to the rooftop from where it belongs. Using it inside the tower will complete the event we got for picking it up, and reward us with a cutscene where Tomba is able to spot a disturbing-looking pig-headed island out at sea. I'd always found this particular scene to be quite eerie, wondering how we could ever find ourselves getting so far out into the middle of the ocean. To the left here is a large boulder where Tomba can use his oft-forgotten ability to push objects, revealing a treasure. By completely whiffing half of the midair goodies, I'm able to gracefully land Tomba right onto the mirror, which leaves us with yet another event that will be sitting in our log for quite some time. Back up and around the area again, we reach an alcove with the young dwarf child the villagers told us about. Talking to him once reveals how he found his way here, but it's only once we talk to him a second time that he'll climb on our backs and allow us to escort him home, which completes the second of 4 specific events for another achievement. The lady in pink here in the village says she left something important in the forest, and for some reason I always forget what she's talking about. We try handing her the mirror and the crystal balls, but no luck. There's also this very odd indentation on the wall outside the village and watchtower, which has always stuck out to me in this game, and bears a vague resemblance to the shape of the mirror. Regardless, whatever this plaque is will plague me for the rest of the playthrough, when the reality is that it's either cut content or meaningless. As with most trips back through the forest, we make it a point to throw the ice cream around for quick AP, and grab leaf butterflies. I'd be very curious to see a speedrun for Tomba just to know how a person would route AP gains. Inside a newly spawned wooden chest here, we'll find the wooden boomerang. It's about as strong as the blackjack, best I can tell, but it can grab items from a distance if we're in a pinch. Hopping about on the cotton ball sport things, we can proceed to free most of the remaining missing dwarves. We'll find some pigs who've set up a campfire, but we don't have the means of dealing with it yet. A brief detour into the large building here actually brings us to a new area, the Wobbly Wharf. Shortly after entering, we'll see a small white puppy run past us, and some really strange flying centipede things with pig snouts called Butamushi, which don't appear anywhere else in the game. They're very strange and they creep me out. Down the wobbly bridge, and we'll find the final missing dwarf, a bucket, and a second crystal ball. There's also a spiked barrel rolling about, but for reasons I'll get into later, we're just gonna ignore it for now. Once we leave, the puppy is now found stuck in the tree spores somehow, so we promptly rescue him and bring him back to the village healer. Tomba leaves the puppy with her after naming him Baron, and we receive 2 events to help him heal. Baron has multiple events that involve items to help him heal and grow over the course of the game. So I made my prediction for Heal Baron somewhat generic in case there was an achievement for any part of the process. Speaking of bingo, when we turn in the Save the Dwarves event, you'll probably have noticed another challenge indicator that's been popping up when we've cleared events. Thanks to the icon and requirements, it's pretty obvious that it's for clearing all 130 events in the game, which is indeed another prediction on the card. With that, we have another green stamp, and still no reds or yellows. We do have over 10 lives at this point, but the condition I set was for any amount 10 or more, just in case the requirements were to have 20 lives at once or something, which seemed like a safe bet for the challenge since lives in Tomba are actually very limited. For now, we'll hold out hope on this one, and the rest of the checks are yet to come. We can now speak to the Dwarf Elder and earn an achievement matching his title. He'll hand us the blue evil pig bag, but unfortunately no achievement tied to receiving the bag, which means we just earned ourselves our first red stamp, as there are no achievements tied to collecting the pig bags. We're taught that each of the 7 evil pigs has a matching evil pig bag that can be found in the area they cast their spell. The bag will reveal a gate when we're nearby, but the matching gates are not in the same zone where you find the bag. We're next directed towards Phoenix Mountain and allowed access into further areas. Before that though, we'll do a bit of cleanup with some optional events. First off, we equip the bucket on the Tomba at the watchtower, and use the seesaws to direct water droplets into it. We can use the bucket with water to put out the campfire from earlier and claim a baked yam. This is intended for the dwarf woman in pink that I mentioned earlier, but we won't clear it until later. Next, we'll go to a previously closed off section called Charity Square. For those who grew up with the demo for Tomba and never the full game, this is very likely the first area that will be completely new to you, as the Missing Dwarves event was the final bit of included content there. I don't know, I just find demos kind of interesting like that. Anyways, Charity Square has quite a few chests in it that we can't open yet, and also plenty of leads for optional events. Here we can find the cage that we'll be depositing leaf butterflies into. Yan from the Hide and Seek event is also here, which marks the first of his 4 hiding spots. Now over 100,000 AP, we can quickly detour back for the AP containers earlier to get some cheese and fruit. Cheese is the closest thing this game has to a Korok seed collectible, as in, there are many sources of cheese, and we only need a few of them by the end. And with that, I think it's time to move on to the next handful of areas, the Mushroom Forest and Phoenix Mountain. As soon as we enter Mushroom Forest, we'll again meet a dwarf blocking our way. He doesn't know how to express emotions, and besides the fact that that's a very particular problem to have, he just so happens to be standing in an area that has the most perfect solution for him. Mushroom Forest is so called because of the variety of mushrooms in it that make you laugh or cry uncontrollably. This area is also exceptionally dangerous, one that I may have lost the most amount of lives in the game to, because it has many bottomless, instant death pits. Couple that with platforms that are somewhat lacking in space to stand without landing on a mushroom, which forces you to ingest it. Laughing and crying fits will replace Tomba's ability to use a weapon, and very frequently occur anytime you're on the ground, cured only by the less common healing mushrooms. Crying in particular is dangerous because it forces Tomba to run in a straight line a short ways. Topped off with enemies that are immune to being jumped on for a moment, numerous chests that are suspended mid-air above the death pit, and the obvious lack of screen space to make safe jumps, and you have a recipe for disaster. Saving is absolutely recommended every time you enter this area, which is mercifully the entirety of the Mushroom Forest. Firstly, we'll eat both a laughing and crying mushroom to earn 2 achievements, the greatest pout and the greatest smile. We can immediately head back to the dwarf with the laughter ailment to clear his first event, and then do the same for crying. This will open the way to Phoenix Mountain, which we'll head to once we grab a few more things here. It never hurts to have a few healing mushrooms on you, so we'll grab any that we see. On the left and right of the area are background walls that we can climb to change layers. The back layer here is much safer and has no pits, so it's a lot easier to get across by using it. Here we'll find a couple strange jellyfish monsters called Bonsugi. The only way to defeat them is to throw them into each other. Do this 3 times and we'll clear the Monster Hunt event before we've even heard of it, claiming the Rise and Shine powder. Since we have over 150,000 AP, we can also open the 3rd and final AP container of the game, which holds an infinite use healing mushroom, clearing another vent just for having it. You'll probably see a door in the background, but much like the one from the Village of All Beginnings, we can't open it for some reason. Heading all the way left and in the foreground, there's a door to a beach with the man who tried to drown us earlier. He'll offer us a one-way boat ride, and for some reason we completely trust that this isn't another ploy to drown us. Surprisingly, we survive and reach the underside of the mansion from the beginning of the game. From this spot, we can enter the mansion, which contains one of each type of chest. For now, we'll just open the only one we have a key for and walk outside, completing 2 more events. You can probably tell by this point that almost every step you take has the opportunity to either start or complete an event. Opting to take the long route back, I got careless and took my first death of the game from a spider at the watchtower. Definitely should have just used some charity wings. With all that said and done, we can finally start our ascent of Phoenix Mountain. The first part of Phoenix Mountain is Stormy Mountain. We'll immediately meet a few people who make it quite clear that this place is under a dangerous spell. As with the Mushroom Forest, Stormy Mountain is also among the most lethal of areas in the game because of its bottomless pits. The other forces to contend with are hidden creatures that spring us into the air, and the constant wind pushing us forward. The wind obviously makes certain jumps more difficult, but it also makes regular enemies more dangerous, as landing on them is more difficult. Along our ascent in the first area, we'll meet Charles again, who's torn his pants after getting stuck. We wish him all the best and abandon him to his fate on the mountain. In the second area, we'll find a handful of needle gators, an enemy that seems to be completely isolated to just these couple ledges within the entirety of the game. Nearby is a little man who's digging a hole in the wall, who tells us to come back later. Just a little further beyond is a door that requires the laughing ailment, and another nearby that alludes to calming the storm first, so we'll be coming back here for both later. A bit of tricky platforming later and we'll reach the peak of the mountain. While a shorter climb than you might expect, you can easily eat through your life total by making even one mistake during the various jumps. Considering we're at 20 lives at this point, I think it's fair to finally call it a bust on that square for the bingo. 20 lives is pretty respectable in Tomba, since as I said they come in very limited quantities. We'll be getting the total a little higher, but I'll spare you any more expectation and just confirm now that there is no achievement tied to your life total. Tomba will take out our collective frustration on the poor innocent phoenix, fighting him just like he does so many others. Bless his soul. Never change, Tomba. In the phoenix's weakened state, he's unable to carry us all the way to the jungle as expected, and we fall off his back, landing in Baccus Village. We'll get an achievement here called Phoenix Ride Gone Wrong. Weirdly, this guard seems to move out of the way just after telling us it's too dangerous to leave, but later when we try again, he won't budge. Not sure what that's about exactly. Anyways, it won't take too many conversations with the townsfolk here to figure out that they've all been turned into mice by the spell of an evil pig. We can pick up a few events while we're here, including one to find a real mouse somewhere in the village, one to kill the ghost-like death fruit enemies in the mushroom forest, and one to deliver any cheese we find in the game. Once we report back to the town hall with the location of the real mouse, we'll get a new event to fix the water pump at Baccus Lake and restore the flow of wine. This allows us access to the adjoining area, the Haunted Mansion, which has its own curse distinct from Baccus Village. If you've been keeping track, that means we've now found the 4th of 7 areas cursed by evil pigs, but still just one pig bag. The Haunted Mansion is one of the more fascinating areas of the game to me. It has a really interesting layout that's both creative and frustrating at the same time. As we travel along any side of the mansion, we can find different spots to climb or jump into the background or foreground. At certain intersections, like the corners of the mansion, you can press up to rotate the perspective 90 degrees. In 2 of the corners though, this results in a short fade to black to cover loading, and another area where you must rotate it back and forth to traverse a hill, as Tomba's unable to climb a hill going into the background. Besides that, the mansion has an abundance of doorways, some with a pig nose pattern, some that are just open, and a couple very distinct ones. By my count, there's about 16 different doors covering all 4 sides of the mansion, which makes remembering what leads to where quite difficult. During our first visit here, we'll be forced to escort a mouse person to the lake, so we can't take any detours, which at least forces us to learn a little bit about how to get around here. There are plenty of blue coca crows that are a great source of blue experience for the time being, and we should be sure to smash all of the eggs we find along the way, though some give way to a nasty surprise of a permanent biting plant. Once we're at the lake, we can make short work of the broken pump and leave, never to return again. The lake has one of the prettiest views in the game and its own music, so it's a crime that we literally never have to come back here for any reason. Reporting back, we'll have cleared a couple events along the way, and we'll earn the achievement, Wine is the Lake Water. Some new dialogue around Baccus Village informs us of another old wise man trapped at the Haunted Mansion, and we'll find a person who can't stop crying, who can be cured by using a healing mushroom next to them. Unfortunately, the ordinary mushroom we got before does not work on them. Once cured, he'll ask for a baby pig, which is our cue to bust out the one that we got at the start of the game from the Peach Flower Gas event. Our reward is 1 Coca Claw. The fortune teller has also returned to the village, and since we have enough AP, she'll give us a hint as to the location of 3 evil pig gates. Now that the village guard has relaxed, we can enter and exit to Stormy Mountain as we please. We take a moment here to get the laughing status and clear the death fruit juice event, though not without taking 2 deaths along the way. This is a nice one to do early on, as it'll reward us with another +1 to our max HP and a clue as to how to heal the Phoenix. Back at Haunted Mansion again, we now have full access to start exploring every inch of it, doing our best to memorize what's behind each door without writing anything down. Challenge impossible. Among the different rooms are a few that have water or chests that we can't open, so we'll just have to remember those for later. We'll also find a small key and fragments of a large key spread about. One fragment lies over a bottomless pit that we can use our boomerang to safely recover, and another is hidden behind a laughing door, which is why we came prepared with the laughing status. We can come back at any time with the crying status to open the crying door for some more cheese. Near the door requiring the small key on the north side of the mansion is a large stone slab with an indentation. Try as we might to find its use, this seems to be similar to the one I pointed out in the Dwarf Forest earlier, as it serves no actual purpose at any point in the game as far as I'm aware. At the apex of the mansion is a large chimney, which we can drop into to find a red jewel. If we're at level 10 for red experience, we can simply touch the jewel to acquire it. The jewel functions as an equipment in our inventory, overriding our attack button with a brief cloak of flame and turning our hair red. Using it for the first time will unlock the achievement Jewel of Fire. The flame goes on a short cooldown after each use, but it makes dealing with enemies and hazards much easier should we choose to use it. Now's probably the time to address the fact that there was no achievement upon reaching level 10 in red experience. Instead, it was tied to using the jewel. Unfortunately, that means another red stamp, as there's no achievements tied to levels in particular. The largest door of the mansion is the 1,000-year-old man's room, who's initially trapped behind a wall of flame. The only way to remove the magic flame is to break all of the eggs around the mansion. After doing so, we can return to find him freed, where he'll inform us that the pigs steal gold because it's a source of magic power for them. Lore, baby! We'll then get the 1,000-year-old key and the achievement, the 1,000-year-old man. Wow, 1,000 years. That's a long time. Our new key allows us to open blue chests, and we're told something important rests at Phoenix Mountain inside one such chest. Beyond the Stormy Mountain are the lava caves, which are apparently impossible to traverse due to another curse, though we'll still have to go there to retrieve the relevant pig bag if we hope to cleanse it. Speaking of, we can now assemble the large key in a room with a painting and use both of our new keys to open a couple of the chests around the mansion, including one with the stone boomerang, which is just a slightly stronger boomerang, and one with the Haunted Mansion's evil pig bag. On the east side of the mansion, we can enter a doorway and use the Jewel of Fire to burn down a wall of hay, behind which is Yan and a couple chests with cheese and a healing lunchbox. We can also return to Baccus Village Town Hall to open a recently placed chest that contains the area's evil pig bag. Now's about as good a time as any to make our way back through Stormy Mountain, remembering this time to take the other route in the second area to grab the healing herbs we missed from earlier, and heading left from the Phoenix's original spot to grab both the dashing pants from a wooden chest and the red evil pig bag from a door with a large keyhole. One last leap beyond where we saw the Phoenix earlier is a set of doorways and a man who I guess is supposed to be guarding the nearby chest. Regardless of his purpose, talking to him while in possession of the 1,000-year-old key will give us access to the chest, which contains a new weapon, the grapple. While the grapple is very useful and entertaining to use, it's unfortunately very weak as a weapon, doing no damage to enemies. Extra unfortunately, acquiring it and swinging it around doesn't seem to unlock any sort of achievements for us, which puts us at an even 4-4, green stamps versus red stamps. What seemed so promising at first has taken quite a turn. Be careful not to use the bottom doorway just yet unless you want a one-way trip back to the bottom of the mountain. Once we enter that top doorway, oh god. A persistent challenge indicator. These are definitely important to keep in mind, but at the moment there's nothing we can do about this one. As we enter the lava cave, we're met with yet another wall of fire that we cannot pass. We can talk to the mouse person here for Charles's pants and open the nearby chest to immediately receive this area's evil pig bag, which brings our total up to 5 of the 7 pig bags. It sure was lucky that the bag was in the only remotely accessible part of the lava caves. If it was even a little further in, we would have been hard stuck. Now we've at least unlocked fast travel for the lava caves, so we can exit and use the bottom door to clear an event and return Charles's pants. He'll give us his parasol in return, which is a godsend item for those areas with bottomless pits. Equipping it allows us to float when we're in midair, greatly slowing our descent. It can be a bit annoying for regular traversal though, so it won't always be equipped, and highlights a bit of an issue with the inventory system being slightly clunky. Of course, I unequip it briefly and then immediately die for it, but them's the breaks. With the security afforded to us from actually equipping the parasol, we can attempt to open some of the mid-air chests in Mushroom Forest. The final annoying quirk of the parasol is that when opening chests, the items that come out of them fall much faster than Tomba will, so you have to hold down on the D-pad to hasten your fall speed, which will let you just barely catch any items. If you hold down for too long though, you'll probably miss your narrow opportunity to land somewhere safe afterwards, which is why it's fitting that many of the chests seem to reward you with extra lives. If you miss an item and it falls into the abyss, don't worry too much, as the chest will respawn if you simply leave and return. You have to grab at least one item from a chest for it to count as collected, which is how the achievement for all 94 chests is tracked. We'll also collect the Mysterious Mushroom and 1000-year-old Bell here to earn the achievements Emotions on Demand and 1000-year-old Bell. When we decide to return again to Dwarf Forest, we can hand over the healing herbs in exchange for a new event to obtain the Knowledge Fruit for Baron, and I finally remember that the item this lady wants is a baked yam. This makes her rip ass and we get +1 to our HP. We can also make a few trips behind the Dwarf Elder's hut, where a hole in the ground leads to a jail cell with a man who has various events tied to him. His first event requires us to go and grab a torch from the village dwarf tending the fire, which allows him to escape his cell. When we leave the jail, it seems that a fight's broken out between two dwarves at the entrance. We simply need to return to the jail again to find a broken vase and bring it to them to stop the fight. Or rather, the Dwarf Elder emerges from an apparent sinkhole in the ground to stop the fight for us. When we finally leave the village, we catch a conversation from some more dwarves who have apparently noticed the escape of the prisoner from earlier. We can look all around, but the solution is to yet again return to the jail, where we'll find the prisoner is already back, apparently foiled in his escape because his tunnel collapsed when we fixed the sinkhole. If all that wasn't ridiculous enough, if we leave and immediately return, there's another event with this guy, where he apparently has served his sentence. He implies he might have escaped, but this time he runs right through the middle of the village and nobody says a word about it. He'll meet us at the watchtower and challenge us to a race. I have no idea if it's difficult or not, but it seems quite easy to win even with sloppy play. Our reward for all of this insanity is the silver powder. We can also head over to an alcove up high in the watchtower area, where some flower seeds have spawned since completing Death Fruit Juice. As the following event is possibly missable, many players recommend prioritizing it as soon as possible, which is why it's on the bingo. This is also a good time to mention that you should always be making multiple saves in case something goes awry. What we need to do is bring the seeds back to the Elder's hut and hand them to the child in green. This starts the Plant a Flower Garden event that cannot be completed until we earn a certain amount of AP after starting it. Some people claim you also need to lift the forest's curse or complete a certain amount of events, but either way, starting it early on like this should avoid any issues altogether. Sadly, I was incorrect in my prediction that it would have an achievement to ensure it wasn't missed, meaning another red stamp for the bingo. I probably picked the wrong event too, but there's nothing for this entire quest line. Elsewhere in the forest, we can climb some tree spores next to Wobbly Wharf to obtain another +1 vitality from a blue chest, and some more leaf butterflies as always. I had a funny strategy here where I would repeatedly jump at this slope and turn around, sliding into a leaf pile that seemed to spawn butterflies pretty frequently, as well as completely banish any pigs who dared to enter. Unfortunately, the butterflies did stop spawning once we hit 25 of them, but I'm not sure how it works behind the scenes, so we have to wait until a later area to collect the remaining ones we need. At Charity Square, there's another blue chest with nothing more than AP in it, but as I've failed to point out until now, there's been a challenge indicator for chests that's been appearing every time we obtain the contents of one. This is clearly an achievement for all chests, so we have to make doubly sure we open every one that we find, which is getting more difficult since we keep opening up new areas with chests we can't seem to open yet. All chests would have been a great call for the bingo, but I didn't think of it at the time. What we can also find while we're here is our first evil pig gate. Making sure to save before we enter, it's finally time for us to challenge our very first evil pig. Immediately, we'll notice a persistent challenge indicator, which we can check to confirm the details of using our emulator or the Retro Achievements website. This is important to do in cases like this, because this is a one-time boss fight, and damageless boss fight achievements are fairly common. This is no exception, though Tomba's mechanics ensure it won't be too difficult. The evil pig bosses in Tomba are almost stupidly straightforward. All we have to do is jump on the evil pig and throw them into the evil pig bag that's floating and/or spinning somewhere. The arena may have hazards, and the evil pig may have attacks, but all we have to do is grab and throw them correctly a single time, and the fight is over. That doesn't always mean it's free though. After making fun of Tomba's hair, we attempt to take our collective anger out on the pig, and land right onto some spikes. The challenge indicator immediately vanishes, and I'm forced to load the game and try again. Thankfully, Tomba is one of those games that lets you just easily load a save by opening the menu, so we give it another couple tries. The hitbox on the spikes is a little larger than it appears, but it's no trouble at all once you get a little verticality. With the red evil pig sealed, we get the achievement Phoenix Mountain Restored, and for doing it damageless, this little piggy got blown away. We're treated to a cutscene that shows the curse being lifted from the Stormy Mountain, and we reward ourselves with a green stamp for an achievement tied to the capture of one evil pig. It's also a good time to note that we're actually over the halfway mark towards 1 million adventure points. Nice work, us! Since we now have the mysterious mushroom, we can give ourselves the crying status at any time to open the leaf slider, granting us the third and final crystal ball, and some blue powder once we take the slide. While we did actually obtain these much earlier, I forgot how the blue powder worked until just now. What we have to do is use the blue powder near one of the red flower enemies, and then throw them into another red one. If you somehow miss like I did, you can always return to Charity Square and take the leaf slider again for more powder. When we do it properly, an item appears that we can grab and eat to complete the event Red plus Blue, which will make Tomba monochrome and move extremely quickly, his regular walk replaced with a constant animal dash. This rewards us with the achievement Red and Blue makes gray? Now, one of my predictions for the bingo was to enter taboo state, which is what this gray Tomba is called. The achievement we just earned says it's for both clearing a specific event and entering taboo for the first time, which makes sense in our current playthrough because it's accurate, and implies that we've earned a green stamp. That being said, there's another way to enter taboo later in the game that doesn't require this event, and entering taboo that way doesn't unlock any achievement as far as I can tell with Encore mode, a setting that lets us test earning achievements again. All of these semantics are my way of saying I'm gonna be putting a yellow stamp. You can decide for yourself if you want to be charitable and consider it green, or play it strictly and consider it red. None of this really matters and it's just for fun, but I want to play fairly, and my intention with that space was to predict an achievement for entering taboo. While this event technically fulfills that, since you're forced to enter taboo to complete it, the totality of circumstances calls for a bit more than just black and white. Or red and green, if you will. Now that we've cleaned up another good portion of side content, we can focus again on cleansing the lava caves. To accomplish this, we'll need to find the Green Pig Gate, and luckily the fortune teller in Baccus village has the answer. Pink is somewhere really hot, and green is the mansion on the lake. For some reason, I misinterpreted which mansion she's referring to and went to the back side of the one in the Village of All Beginnings. I could have sworn there was a pig gate here, but I must have misremembered. Anyway, since it's not there, it's clearly gotta be at the Haunted Mansion, which seems a lot more obvious in hindsight. We spend an inordinate amount of time checking every room for the gate, only to finally find it behind the Smiling Door, which is quite an annoying spot for it. Just like before, we save before entering inside because every evil pig has an achievement for succeeding without taking damage. He calls us a skinny chicken wing boy or something, and we thoroughly trounce him on the first try, earning the achievements, Lava Caves Restored, and this little piggy got roasted. A magical rain drenches the lava cave's flames, and we waste no time teleporting there with our charity wings. Now that we're finally here, there are a couple of things to note before we get much further into exploring. Firstly, there's the obvious challenge indicator from before, which is for a missable achievement. We'll be prioritizing the completion of that above all else, and the safety save right now means that in the worst case, we can always load our game and try again. The achievement is to collect 5 bunk flowers without losing a life or leaving the area. This is potentially easier said than done, as the lava caves are more bottomless pit than solid ground. We'll have to make good use of our new grapple to get around, and the parasol will assist us in not dying every few seconds. We'll come across the pink pig gate almost immediately, but we'll be ignoring it for now. We'll also run into a thief who's lost something for his boss. We can use the grapple to attach to the pumpkin-headed plants, chests, the flying bat pigs, and even the ceiling. While each jump on its own would be perilous and tricky, the parasol makes all the difference. There are actually 7 bunk flowers in total, so we end up quickly collecting the 5 that we need for the achievement, jumping for flowers inside the cave. If we climb high enough in the sort of center of the lava caves, we can just barely see a pumpkin plant at the top of the screen. Here we'll find what the thief lost. No, literally, that's what the item is called. And we can return to him. Next, we'll save and take on the pink evil pig. No real surprises here. Another jokester decides to make fun of Tomba's hair, and we take offense to that. We do take a hit the first attempt, but the second try goes smoothly, earning us the Haunted Mansion Restored, and This Little Piggy Got Hogwarts achievements. Another evil pig down, another area cleansed. Something that I've been meaning to mention, and really sticks out to me here with the cleansing of the Haunted Mansion, is that there are a lot of pig noses attached to the environment in this game. I'd always kind of considered that maybe they were supposed to be spooky sort of eyes on the pumpkin plants, like a jack-o'-lantern, and on the doors of the Haunted Mansion. But now that it's cleansed, the building goes from worn and gray with cobwebs and green grass, to immaculate white with autumn leaves, and the doors don't change at all. I think it's already strange that part of the curse would have been green grass, but the pig noses on the sides of the hill really bewilder me. It should have been somewhat obvious earlier, since the mansion and pumpkins in the Village of All Beginnings aren't in a cursed area, so I guess the people of these lands just have a love-hate relationship with pigs? I'm really unsure. From here, we can head right back to the thief again, and obtain what the thief forgot. Seriously, that's what it's called now. We can also open a bunch of the chests here in the caves, which mostly contain extra lives, though there is a notable exception in the corner that contains a vitality +1. You might note that our HP is still only at 8, and that's because we need a certain item to break our HP cap. Thankfully, any HP increases we collect will apply retroactively after breaking the cap, so there's no need to wait on collecting them. We can climb back up towards where we found what the thief lost earlier, and with either a bit of forward thinking or keen observation, we can toss a charged grapple straight up from the pump rock where there's no obvious ceiling, and we'll find ourselves attached to an off-screen pumpkin plant with a nice reward of 10,000 AP, and the ladder leading to the Hidden Village. This place might be one of the only completely optional areas in the game, depending on how you look at it. You might expect something quite grand to be hidden here, but there are only 5 NPCs, and only 2 of them are associated with any events. This person over here named Taro is hungry, so all we need to do is use a lunchbox near them, which is a bit counterintuitive since that would normally consume it for ourselves. They also reward us with cheese, so I'm confused as to why they were so hungry. It's possible to miss this event if we eat every lunchbox in the game before completing it, but I mean, come on. Similarly, the other event here is also missable, called Takeout. Given to us by Yan's father, we're required to give Yan a special lunchbox at one of his hiding spots. We can miss this event if we find all 4 of Yan's hiding spots before accepting this event, even though Yan can still be found and spoken to after hide and seek is completed. This is the event that I mentioned earlier, being one of 2 that I failed to complete in my previous playthrough of Tomba. Because of this, I made a space for it on the bingo, though we've yet to see how that will unfold. What we do know is that we'll be getting a red stamp for the lack of an achievement when discovering the Hidden Village. I was really confident in that one being a winner. And with that, we've seen just about everything the Hidden Village will ever have to offer us. Pretty underwhelming for the closest thing this game has to a secret area for sure. With that out of the way, we can return to the lava caves and head through the intended exit towards the Phoenix's nest. With bunk flowers in hand, we can use them to... Oh, okay, wait. Maybe over here? No, that didn't work either. Which side is this thing's head on? Oh, okay, now it finally worked. Okay then, off we go. Another trip on the Phoenix, but this time we make it to our intended destination, Masakari Jungle, earning the achievement, the Master of the Skies. Masakari Jungle is probably the most straightforwardly lethal area of the game, and one of the more painful to simply get from left to right. The only obstacles initially are some bouncy drums and hostile Masakari, though we'll quickly run into some large biting plants that do humongous damage if we touch them or get bit, losing up to 4 points of health from a bite. The canopied ceiling here is surprisingly low as well, forcing us to grab vines that make us slide down when held. A strong boomerang, or especially the Jewel of Fire, are very helpful here, but I was too late in reaching this conclusion and ended up taking a death to the biting plants. If we survive the gauntlet of drums, Masakari, and plants, we'll obtain a funga drum, and then reach an extremely long pit of spikes with no clear way across, though we can jump onto a cage in the background. Heading left, we'll run into a man whose hat is in the possession of Charles. Further left of him is Yan, in another hiding spot. We try to give him his lunchbox by using it next to him just like Taro, but this doesn't actually work and just makes Tomba eat the lunch instead. Because this is obviously the bad timeline now, we load and try again, which means we get another chance to keep the taboo state. We actually just have to talk to Yan to attempt to give him the lunchbox, but he'll refuse anyways, and we're rewarded with again more cheese. Okay, so he doesn't need lunch because he has cheese, but Taro did? I'm not following. As no achievement seems to pop for finishing this event, that's dishearteningly another red stamp, and it means we only have one possible line left to earn a real bingo. So far, none of my event-related predictions have been correct, but I have hope in those that remain. We can't go any further left here, but we can climb the nearby tree to reach another Vitality +1 and a lunchbox and some chests, and discover the orange evil pig gate. Before that, we'll go back to save and... Alright. Taking a single solitary step into this cage means we instantly lose a life. Awesome. I guess Taboo just wasn't meant to be. Back at the checkpoint, we can make our safety save before confronting the evil pig. In the fight, we managed to get hit on the first attempt because I wasn't expecting the boulders to bounce off the walls. The second attempt goes similarly, but the third attempt is a clean win. With that, another pig is bagged, and we earn the Baccus village restored and This Little Piggy Got Crushed achievements. The residents of Baccus village are now back to their human forms, but this is one of the less influential changes for our overall experience. Good for them though. With that out of the way, we can climb the cage and attempt to go further into the jungle by riding the banana bunches, but we have to be careful as the last of them was actually a straight shot into another cage. Avoid this trap and we're met with an invisible wall trying to go any further right, so we'll have to jump back into the foreground. This area is laid out strangely in that sense, where there are multiple invisible barriers rather than obvious walls or otherwise. Left is a banana item and a path back towards the first cage that was too high for us to see before. Going right, we'll find Charles, who we can't really interact with. Trying to go any further right drops us into the water, where Charles will save us and offer us a lesson in swimming if we bring him a drink. He won't take bananas this time, but he will give us the man's hat he found, which will allow us into the Y crossing at the Village of Civilization. We're unable to go to the Lumberjack Factory or the Iron Castle for now, so the Clock Tower will have to do. When we first enter, we're put into a small adjoining screen where there's nothing to do but either proceed to the Clock Tower or turn around. We do get a cool shot that pans over the whole clock tower, but just this once. Then we'll enter another empty room with a bell, and climb a chain to find the man from earlier wearing his invisible hat, I guess. After praising the wonder of the Village of Civilization, we'll be told that none of the machines are currently working. The man will then offer us some juice that he just made, but then says he needs bananas to make it. I feel like some of these characters and events in this latter portion of the game are starting to feel a bit silly. Maybe mistranslated? Either way, we have the bananas, so we can get some juice for Charles, lose 2 lives really quick, and then finally learn how to swim for the achievement I Can Swim. And a green stamp. We can leave this river by jumping into the background where the rope ladder is, even though Tomba will not change his animation to make this clear. Here we find a handful of pump rocks and the knowledge fruit for Baron. After biting this bird, they'll speak on behalf of the Tree of Knowledge to us, asking that we press down on all of the pump rocks in the world to feed nutrients back to him. This is the event space that I've been the most confident in. If we'd pressed every pump rock since the start of the game, we'd be done once we reached this area. Unfortunately, we still missed one somewhere, so we'll have to figure that out later. We're warned not to go towards the waterfall back at the river, but I felt like I remembered it being a shortcut somewhere, and was swiftly proven correct. It's a shortcut to losing a life. My first inclination is that the missing pump rock is at Stormy Mountain, so we use the 1,000-year-old bell to reach the haunted mansion that's 2 screens away. This is our first look at the mansion now that it's been healed, with new music and a brighter appearance. The crows are all gone, but the biting plants are unfortunately here to stay. We can stop to turn in some cheese at Baccus village and then have our first revisit to Stormy Mountain now that the wind has subsided, making it significantly easier to navigate like I mentioned before. It doesn't take long to find a singular overlooked pump rock, but it does come with disastrous news. There is no achievement tied to pump rocks. I was so confident in this one too. Out of all the predictions that I made that weren't generic, this was absolutely the one that I had the most confidence in. So it's a shame that it's a definitive fail. No time to dwell on that though, as we continue to find more undiscovered content here in the mountain. There's a lone Masakari here that will take the drum we found lying around earlier, and open the way to some molasses. Kind of random, but we'll take it. Then with some fancy pole swinging, we'll find a few chests, only one of which we can open for now. In the second part of the mountain, the digging man has finally finished his work, and we can claim another piece of cheese for all of his effort. There is a lot of cheese in this game for some reason. Just ahead, we can find a smiling door where Yan's been hiding, making this the final hiding spot. There's also the door that required the wind to calm down before opening, and a couple more chests. We open one for some charity wings, and then lose a life trying to obtain the one that fell. I've been starting to get real careless at this point. With all of Yan's hiding spots found, we can now head to the hidden village either by the nearby lava caves or fast traveling, finally completing the hide and go seek event. Now, a few things to note about that. Firstly, Yan gives us an item called the Golden Bowl. We can check our inventory for it, but we won't find it. The Golden Bowl, despite the name, is not one of the 5 golden items that characters mention at various points of the game. It's actually the item that breaks our HP cap, letting us reach a maximum of 16 HP with every vitality increase in the game, though for now we have enough to reach 10. Secondly, we didn't directly earn an achievement for this, but we did get progress towards one. Now, with that logic, we could also include all of my event predictions under the umbrella of the All Events achievement, but you could also argue that this one naming the exact event meets a bit of a specificity requirement. With that, I'm not really sure what to do other than to opt for another yellow stamp. This was a situation I hadn't accounted for, so I'll have to leave it up to your judgment. What do you think? With that said and done, we'll return to Baron in the Dwarf village to give him the knowledge fruit. The healer notes that he may have special powers with his enormous ears, and the next step to his growth would be to eat some seaweed from the mansion beach at the Village of All Beginnings, so we go and grab that right away. This completes Baron's questline and we obtain the achievement, the Dog with Special Powers, putting us over the halfway mark for total achievements, though the rest should start to come more quickly. This achievement is strange because, to the best of my knowledge, it's actually missable, but not marked as such, even though it's also implied in the description. I've always done the Baron events, but it's been said online that capturing the 7th evil pig, either without finishing or starting the Baron questline, will give him to you automatically, and you'll miss out on his related events and probably this achievement. It's also yet another tricky decision for the bingo, but I think it warrants a green stamp. The implication is that you have to heal Baron rather than get him for free to earn this achievement, so I feel confident that it matches the conditions I had in mind when making the prediction. With Baron acquired, we can now use him from our inventory like an infinite charity wings item, basically free fast travel, complete with a unique animation of Tomba riding him around. We'll be using this to great effect from here on out. Checking our events, it seems like we've completed 77 of them and discovered 88. So we're definitely getting close to finished with this game, believe it or not. We can head back to the Y crossing for now, but we're still unable to access the other two areas. We have to go back to the clock tower and talk to the man there for permission to move freely. At the Iron Castle, we're met with the same introduction as the clock tower, an adjoining room with no purpose other than to show off a sweeping shot of the castle just once and never again. There are 3 doors in the Iron Castle to explore, but one of them is rusted shut and the other 2 have absolutely nothing noteworthy behind them unless you're starved for AP. We can head back to the Y crossing again and go left to reach the Lumberjack factory, which definitely doesn't look like what I would have imagined. The guys here all have this Squidward nose thing going on that I find hilarious, and I've always associated this guy with Todd Howard for some reason. Todd Howard here will explain that the yellow Bonsugi are in possession of the tear bottle needed to repair the fountain in Charity Square. Something that's been mentioned multiple times, but this is our first real lead towards accomplishing that. Fucking Todd Howard, dude. He also says that we'll need to heal the forest for the Bonsugi to return, so we'll put a pin in that until we find the blue evil pig. The other guy notes that a bomb is likely strong enough to open the Iron Castle's rusted door, and that he even made one, but thought it would be wise to hide it in a coconut tree and also make it look like a coconut. Yeah, really wise. There's also a deflated cart here like the one we saw way back at the start of the game, and a destroyed metal door that we can enter to find a single charity wing and nothing else, okay? We can return to the jungle to find the coconut bomb, bring it to the Iron Castle to make a coconut explosion, and open the way to the Coconut Mall. Okay, that last part was a lie. It actually opens the way to some machinery that Tomba can turn on, and we see both the clock tower and the watch tower spring to life, earning the achievement, the Civilization Machine. As thanks, we're given a key to the old pond and told it leads to the 10,000-year-old man. We'll also receive a tip about a witch in the Village of All Beginnings, learn we need Baccus village wine to make the cart functional, and grab a raft that spawns by the factory for use at Old Tree Hill, returning us to the Haunted Mansion. We'll also have to try it just once to complete the event. We'll quickly grab the wine and return to make the fuel bar. We can also talk to the bomb maker to grab an event, though I'm not sure it's necessary. Now that we can swim and have the key, we can go to the old pond and enter a new area, Trick Village. As soon as we arrive, we'll learn that Trick Village is almost entirely underwater, and that it's the location of the final evil pig's magic. After a short swim, we'll enter the 10,000-year-old wise man's home from the chimney. He wants to test us by having us obtain 10 math beads underwater, though we'll need to learn how to dive first. To do this, we'll have to exit and swim further right until we obtain the seashell necklace from a chest, and then find the mermaid at the Haunted Mansion, which means going into every single door until we find her in the last one we try. She'll immediately teach us how to dive, and we'll get the mighty fish food and the achievement, Going Underwater. It's always stuck out to me how long the game makes you wait to learn how to swim after teasing it at the start of the game, but then you very quickly learn how to dive afterwards. Next, we'll be heading over to the Village of All Beginnings, making sure to save our game, and then using the fuel bar by the cart to play the Motocross minigame, where we'll earn the achievement, Ready to Race, just for starting it. There's a lot of AP, charity wings, and lunchboxes along the course's 2 paths, so it pays to take it slow and collect them while you familiarize yourself with the layout. The controls are simple, you just hold forward and jump when necessary. The cart seems to tilt and bounce depending on your speed and how you land, but it's not especially intricate as far as mechanics go. We have to beat the 3 individual course records to obtain 3 different medals from the mermaid, but what's tricky is they do not stack, and each has an event tied to it. So you're guaranteed to run this event at least 3 times, and you may have to slow down intentionally if you're doing too well for bronze or silver. I've seen reports online that these events are missable if you earn the better medals first, but I've also read that that's false, so just be cautious. There's also no easy way back other than to fly to the village and run back to the cart again. If we let our fuel tank run out, we can start over quickly, but we lose a life, which is not recommended. This was the first part of the game where I really felt like I was going to lose my mind if I didn't have the fast forward feature of the emulator, as it took me quite a few times to understand how best to beat the course. It seemed to come down to just jumping as little as possible, which I think ended up being about 5 times, rather than trying to outsmart the course and jump at every hill. In fact, we clear the gold time on the first attempt after committing to this strategy. Afterwards, we'll have 3 medals in our inventory, a Vitality +1, and a red stamp for my prediction that there would be an achievement for beating a particular time. I'm a little more surprised that there was one for starting a race than I am that there was none for a time trial. Either way, we can move on from Motocross now. We should have stopped to check on the cute witch event, but instead we progressed the main story again by returning to Trick Village. Now that we can dive, it's possible to collect the math beads, which are really just number beads. I have no idea where the math part comes in. We can swim around and rotate some underwater barriers with ease. When we press the jump button, we actually spin towards the bottom of the screen, but it allows us to bite enemies and open chests underwater like normal jumps would. Navigating the barriers that only spin in certain directions is indeed tricky, but the 10 math beads don't take long to collect. We'll receive the 10,000-year-old key, the thief's wire, and the achievement, the 10,000-year-old man, in return for them. Whew, 10,000 years. That is a long time. Okay, sorry, I'm done, it's getting old. 10,000 years old, we can now open red chests, so we'll immediately head back underwater to get a Vitality +1 and the yellow evil pig bag. Next up is the underground maze, which is the final area of the game. Back at the watchtower, we can head over to where we busted a part of the wall and enter into what's revealed as an elevator. This will bring us to the underground maze, which is a veritable treasure trove, featuring 15 chests by my count. Of the ones we can open immediately, we'll get some needle gator teeth, cheese, and cold medicine. There's another door here that leads to the haunted mansion, and a Vitality +1 ripe for the taking. Back in the maze, we can use the thief's wire to open a door and reach the blue fortune teller, who will give us another Vitality +1 and hints towards the remaining evil pig gates if we have enough AP. Blue is the beachside door, yellow is the guard of time, and the remaining blue is here in this maze. We can open even more chests now containing cheese, a coca claw, biting plant flower, and more. Another exit here will bring us to the door from the Forest of All Beginnings. The final exit in the corner of the maze brings us to the strange small room, where every evil pig we've defeated will be placed as a statue. With only 3 evil pigs left, the end is very much in sight, so the final portions of the game will be to reach the million-year-old man, clean up any leftover events, and find every remaining chest. Firstly, we sprint to the mansion on the beach again because I knew there was a pig gate there, but I forgot that we didn't actually get the bag yet, so we have to walk away with nothing but the contents of the red chest, which brings us over 1 million adventure points, finally granting us Adventurer Millionaire. It's been a long time coming, and I've been getting pretty sick of seeing the challenge indicator all the time. Next, we'll head over to Y Crossing and save before revealing the yellow evil pig's gate in the clock tower. We make laughably short work of them on the first attempt and earn Trick Village restored, and this little piggy got water-filled lungs. That's pretty gruesome. Our victory means that Trick Village will now be drained of most of its water, which will arguably make it harder to navigate going forward. Next up is Mizuno, the witch who lives in the house from the start of the game. It's almost strange to find that this door can actually be opened after all the years I spent thinking it was only set dressing. Oh, and that door from Mushroom Forest leads to Haunted Mansion, by the way. I didn't figure it was important enough to mention until now. A simple chat with Mizuno will give us the achievement "You'll need these for the sequel," which is completely accurate and important to note if you plan to play Tomba 2. Mizuno will inform us of her recipe to make magic candy, which requires a handful of random items, most of which we've already collected. She's also the owner of the crystal balls and the mirror. We can hand them to her and she'll ask us to come back later, to which we'll respond in classic video game fashion by leaving and immediately returning, and she'll act as though she's been waiting a while. The mirror will become the magic mirror, and it will combine our blackjack and grapple into the Grapplejack, the best weapon in the game with the longest reach, high damage, and the ability to grapple. Its only real weakness is that it will defeat enemies instead of grabbing them in the lava caves. The back-to-back events we just completed pushes us over the 100 events mark, and equipping our new weapon gives us the achievement, Power Up for Tools? In the background, we finally reach level 10 for blue experience, so we can go to Trick Village and claim the Jewel of Water that's out in the open. As best I can tell, it functions the same way as the Jewel of Fire, but it probably works underwater. Using it just once will award us the Jewel of Water achievement. We can also pop into the 10,000-year-old man's room and receive the event The 5 Golden Items, in which he'll trade his rare psychic fish for them. If we stop by Old Tree Hill, we can not only grab the Navy Pig bag, but the tree will tell us more about the 5 golden items, including the fact that the gold medal is one of them, and a misleading one that's in Hidden Village. We can use these tips to head over to Baccus Village and turn in some more cheese to get the golden fruit. Then we'll save and head back through Mushroom Forest to put our Navy Pig bag to good use. I knew there was an evil pig here! This is one of the longer boss runs if you mess up, so try to be careful. Luckily, we're able to best this one on the first attempt, earning Masakari Jungle restored, and this little piggy got fumigated. Were these so morbid sounding the whole time, or has it just been the last few? With Masakari Jungle cleansed, flowers will grow and the Masakari themselves will no longer be hostile. We'll say goodbye to this interesting room under the mansion, since we'll be locked out forever once we leave. We make note of the inventory and remaining events in the log to figure out what's left to clean up, since I haven't been using a guide up to this point. That'll change soon when it gets down to the last few events and chests. In the jungle, which is now healed, we can collect the last of the required leaf butterflies and open this chest to get the final pants of the game, the Flash Pants, earning the Fashionista achievement. This marks the 71st chest, the 40th achievement, and the 19th bingo stamp. Now, since the achievement is just for getting all 4 pants, I would give this a red stamp under normal circumstances, since we could have potentially gotten them out of order. However, based on what I've read online, it seems that the pants are progressive, meaning that no matter what order you open the chests, you'll always receive the pants in the same order, meaning that, technically speaking, this achievement is basically to acquire the Flash Pants, which would meet my prediction. However, I haven't tested this myself, and it would be a technicality either way, so yellow it is. Now let's return to Charity Square and deposit the leaf butterflies into the cage with the dwarf. The butterflies lift the cage into the sky and drop us at Hidden Village before hatching the giant egg, granting us the golden leaf butterfly. This is why I said it was misleading to mention a golden item was in Hidden Village, since we needed to be in Charity Square to actually accomplish anything. All the yellow chests are beginning to bother me, so it's time to focus on reaching the million-year-old man. We'll need to hear a tip about an unbreakable wire at the Haunted Mansion, and then explore rooms mindlessly again to find which NPC is in possession of it. Once obtained, we can open the remaining doors in the underground maze and reach the old man, who thinks we have beautiful eyes. He'll tell us that the evil pig's magic comes from gold, which we already knew, and it completes an event called Source of Evil Magic. I'm sorry, did the game forget we've had this information for a long time? I guess we learned maybe that more gold equals more powerful magic, but I figured that was always implied. Either way, we'll get the million-year-old key we've been craving, and the achievement, the Million-Year-Old Man. I figure it's been fairly clear for a while now that since every old wise man had their own individual achievement, that there wouldn't be one for them collectively, which is a shame. With that, we've officially run out of opportunities to obtain a real bingo. But we can still hope for a high score. We've got 4 more spaces left, so fingers crossed. We can clearly see the blue pig gate open in this room, but we'll have to save first. On the way, we grab our first yellow chest for 300,000 AP and an event. We're well over 1.5 million AP now, so it seems like the grinding earlier was a bit overkill. I've always found it a bit surprising and annoying that the blue evil pig is the last one you're able to reach, since his area is probably the most expansive and is the first you encounter. He's also going to prove himself the most annoying to fight, as the arena has a wheel rolling around with spiked pegs that make it tough to find an opening. The evil pig himself also likes to spawn too high to reach most of the time, so it takes 6 different attempts to finally get a good angle. Once the final evil pig is sealed, we get the 100 Flower Forest restored, and this little piggy got allergies. Only 10 achievements are left, and we finally get to see why it's called the Forest of 100 Flowers. Because the trees are cherry blossoms. In a weird inversion to the Haunted Mansion, the autumnal look of the forest and village is changed to spring green and grassy. It's quite a pretty sight, although it's probably the most notable change in music for me, where I prefer the original Cursed area track compared to the Purified one. Defeating the 7th evil pig puts us in this strange small room automatically, and gives us a black evil pig bag. The original 7 pigs are restored and flee, locking us out from what is essentially the 8th evil pig's gate. The pedestals are apparently just pressure switches, so rather than find 7 boulders or 7 of the people in the maze, we're tasked with traveling the world to find 7 friends that will come here and stand on the switches for us. Yeah, okay. We're on the home stretch now, with every area open and purified. We'll sprint over to Mushroom Forest to beat the yellow Bonsugi and claim the tear bottle, or tear jar as the pop-up says. Then we'll head to the yellow flower elsewhere in the zone and use the Rise and Shine powder on it to claim its tears in the bottle. Finally, we'll claim the remaining chests in the area while making absolutely sure we fall and lose a life in the process. Very important step. And now we'll never have to come back here again. Yay! Least favorite area in the game. Back at Charity Square, we can use the flower tears to repair the fountain and open the way to the flower tower. This event has been teased to us for most of the game, requiring multiple steps and the defeat of the blue evil pig to get this far. You need to have at least 1 million AP to climb the tower and secure the sacred fish. The fish acts like an equipable item, and although nothing really looks any different, you move a bit faster than the Flash Pants, best I can tell. Unfortunately, I made a poor choice in predicting that the sacred fish would be tied to an achievement, especially considering its overlap with reaching 1 million AP as a basic requirement anyways. Or maybe I was hedging my bets? Either way, red stamp. In Dwarf Village, we can talk to this random guy in the corner who will be our first friend for the switches. It's also time to claim our golden flower from the garden. There's a guy in the corner of Baccus Village who's equally excited to take down the final evil pig, and for whatever reason, a living statue from Charity Square has taken a liking to the town hall and started pissing in the well. A quick trip to lava caves and Stormy Mountain to get some of the missed chests from earlier will see us get the iron boomerang, which is the best boomerang in the game if that's your style. With maxed green experience, we can also return to the Phoenix's Nest to gain the Jewel of Wind and the achievement of the same name. We probably could and should have gotten this earlier, as it's easily the best of the 3 jewel items, granting us what is effectively a double jump without replacing our weapon. Very nice to have. After scouring the earth for half an hour, we finally find where the thief went after losing his stuff in lava caves. He's up here, hiding in the chimney of Haunted Mansion. He'll give us some cheese and return the item to his boss in the room below. When we check on the guy, he says he's now lost the treasure, and leaves the room, allowing us to open the chest literally right next to him that has an enormous jewel in it, and immediately clear the event we just got. For whatever reason, this jewel is in our inventory and has a very distinct look to it, but serves no further purpose. Possibly more cut content? Before leaving the mansion forever, we'll open all the remaining chests and recruit this random guy in an alcove of a room. I think the only time we've ever spoken to someone who looks like this guy was the one guarding the grapple chest. Now's the time when I finally try to figure out a certain event I've been putting off until now, way back at Wobbly Wharf. You see, this spiked barrel has been a thorn in my side since I was a kid. In the Tomba demo, you can hit the barrel to knock the spikes off of it. You can hit it again, or with a stronger strike initially, to destroy it and get some AP. There's no real indication, especially in the demo, that there's anything more to this, and the barrel never respawns, so it seems like a no-brainer to remove the hazard. Unfortunately, there's a lot more to this barrel than you might expect. Where the barrel rolls is an event that can be completely missed if you ever destroy the barrel, which I've done every single time I've ever played this game in the past out of muscle memory. So I've never finished this event before, and I imagine it's the most easily missed event in the game next to Takeout, which is why I made predictions for both. I still didn't understand what to do here each time I passed through before, so I finally had to give in and look it up. What we're supposed to do is knock the spikes off the barrel without destroying it. I thought maybe then you were supposed to maneuver the bridge in a way to move the barrel, but I was overthinking it. Remember how Tomba can push stuff? Of course you do! Well, now we have to push the barrel all the way to the right and into the water. Since we know how to dive, we can complete the event by witnessing the barrel seal an underwater whirlpool. This opens a shortcut to the Haunted Mansion that is almost definitely useless by the time we can actually dive, but whatever. For all that effort and the redemption of my younger self, we'll get a nice shiny red stamp. I mean, maybe this event is just a personal nemesis, but I'm a little shocked that there was no achievement for it. I mean, come on. After acquiring a Butamushi thorn from the final chest in the underground maze, we finally have all the items necessary to make the golden candy at Mizuno's house. We'll also find her to have a cold when we first enter, so we'll give her the cold medicine and gain +1 vitality. With all 5 golden items, we can return to the 10,000-year-old man and trade them for the psychic fish, earning the achievement 5 golden items. The psychic fish is our other method of entering taboo state without having to do the blue powder method every time. We'll be granted our penultimate stamp here, another red, since none of the golden items had an achievement tied to them, only the event for all 5. Now it's time to clean up all the remaining chests in the game before I suddenly remember there's one more event to do. We'll head to the old pond and open a chest for the 10,000-year-old bell item and achievement. We'll do the same for the million-year-old bell at the watchtower, which is just such an out-of-the-way spot for it. The yellow chest in the beach mansion has 3 1-ups in it, and that's when I suddenly remember the mighty fish food required for the remaining event. We can use the fish food in a handful of spots to gain max experience for a color, and the old pond is one of those places. We don't need the XP anymore, but clearing the final secondary event is always nice. I spent a long time looking for the final chests, knowing that we were missing a vitality increase. It got to a point where I was worried we'd forgotten a chest in the Dwarf Forest that's allegedly missable, but it ended up being in Stormy Mountain. With the final chest claimed and a vitality +1 inside, we earn the achievements Max Vitality and Treasure Collector. And here goes our final stamp. 8 out of 24 isn't the greatest showing, but at least we ended on a high note with a definitive green stamp. You can always look at the bingo in a different light, maybe more or less favorably than I did. Do you disagree with any of my predictions or decisions? Let me know in the comments. With every single side activity done, we can now focus on finishing the game. We can head to the Y crossing to find these 2 identical twins and recruit one of them for our mission. There's also a guy at the lumberjack factory who also has a nearby twin, and the strangely dressed guy at Iron Castle. We can look as hard as we want throughout the rest of the game, but we'll never find a 7th person willing to call themselves our friend. Eventually, we return to the strange small room to find at least 2 of these guys are not the people we actually talked to. Without a 7th friend, Baron decides that he'll help because the million-year-old man definitely won't. This will open the door to the final battle, and Baron will quite clearly jump off his switch to follow us. Here we go, the final boss. In this glittering golden landscape, the ultimate evil pig has the stature of a child, and claims to have created the other evil pigs for our entertainment. Everything is a game to them. And so, in order to assert dominance and show them that we are the protagonist of this game, that Tomba is a cool guy, and that pink hair is awesome. In order to prove that once and for all that you do not mess with us, we just immediately toss them right into the pig bag. Game over. This final act will award us with all of the remaining achievements in the game, starting with Master Evil Pig defeated, and this little piggy cried, "Wee!" all the way home. We're treated to a cutscene of the pig island we saw earlier collapsing in on itself, though I have no idea how the maze somehow connected all the way over there. Tomba and Baron fly over an endless expanse of ocean, eventually reaching the hut of the 100-year-old man, joined by the remaining wise men. With their thanks and encouragement, Tomba heads off from the lands we've grown so familiar with, saying goodbye to Charles and Baron. With his grandfather's bracelet recovered, he can finally return to his normal life. we'll clear the first event of the game that kicked things off, which gives us the final achievements, Grandpa's Bracelet, and 100% Young Man. And that's Tomba! The in-game timer clocked me at just under 6 hours of playtime, though I had captured over 8.5 hours of footage. Either way, Tomba is a relatively short game that's simple enough to pick up and play. Finishing it isn't too tough as long as you remember to save and load in the event you lose a lot of lives, which is easy to do in some of the areas I mentioned earlier. Completion, on the other hand, can be a bit frustrating since there are so many instances where you can miss something without realizing it until right near the end of the game. In most cases though, the events are designed in a way that it's not terribly difficult to figure out what to do, rewarding thorough exploration more than precise platforming or combat skill. This is why it seems closest to me to be a Metroidvania game, as Tomba getting new abilities allows you to get new items and return to previous areas to open up more branching paths and events. Tomba sets itself apart with the unique mechanic of having layered exploration, allowing you to reach different parts of the gameplay area by jumping into the background and clinging to walls. Tomba is very freeing in that sense, and I wish that some of the areas were even larger, like lava caves, as it's very fun to build up speed and cleanly platform around, but the grapple doesn't get used quite enough. The world itself is very interconnected, and it's kind of exciting sometimes to go through a door and end up somewhere you recognize. It's not quite Dark Souls, in which these interconnected areas make sense and are useful, but it does make the world feel a bit more complete. Each area has a distinct theme and music, which makes them stand out and stick in my memory. Well, most of them at least. The Village of Civilization areas and the Trick Village have always stood out to me as particularly boring and empty, lacking a lot of personality. They clearly put in a lot of work designing the pre-rendered backgrounds, but it feels as though they struggled to fill the space, and so each NPC has a specific event tied to them that pushes you forward, with no room for additional characters to help build out the world. On the topic of music, Tomba has a pretty unique, very energetic and bouncy feeling soundtrack. I'm not a musical guy, so I can't tell you what instruments are being used most often here, but I would say that I enjoy most of the soundtrack, and I've been humming it over the weeks since I finished the game. Village of All Beginnings is a track that's been completely stuck in my brain for over 20 years, and I love the atmosphere provided by the cursed areas accompanying tracks. However, I think that nearly every other village theme is fitting but not welcoming in a way that makes me want to stick around. I believe that music has a large role to play in how you create memories and the emotions you associate with them. And the association I have with each village from the dwarves onward is just that I want to get back to the rest of the game. The Purified areas also have different tracks that are about 50-50 for me on whether I enjoy them or not. Especially Dwarf Forest is one that I vastly prefer the Cursed theme, as it's silly and filled with curiosity, while the Purified theme goes for similar but with uplifting notes that seem to clash in my mind. The art style of Tomba is also quite notable, as it uses many vivid colors and warped architecture to make you feel as though you're in an abstract fantasy landscape that's not far from Alice in Wonderland. The pig snout symbols that are plastered everywhere in the game aid in this too, as mentioned before. The writing of the game feels slightly off, though I can't point to exactly why. There are some minor grammatical errors here and there, but it's difficult to pin down if the game wasn't exactly finished, if there were mistranslations, or both. The different objects in the world and items you find are sometimes completely unused, and characters say strange things that don't make a lot of sense. It was never trying to be an epic tale or anything, but the humor near the start of the game gradually seems to fade for a more serious plot, which seems like a bad call. As far as the achievement set goes, I would first like to extend my thanks to the original author, Viper Zhang. I don't hold any of my bingo results against you. Before I offer my critique of the 37 non-progression achievements, I want to preface by saying that these are strictly my opinions, and don't reflect anything about the set's author or authors, or any other user of the site. If I give any sort of criticism, I mean it only from my own subjective point of view, and you're free to disagree, so I expect that you take my opinion with a grain of salt. To start, I like that Tomba has an achievement for finishing every event, and for making especially sure to point out the 4 required for the sequel. However, because there are achievements tied to specific events like the golden items and red plus blue, I think it would have been wise to also make achievements that highlighted the specific events that are highly missable, to point players on the right track and avoid having to start the game over. Alternatively, there could have been 130 individual achievements for each event so you wouldn't have to do everything again if you started over. It would work since there's no in-game reward for completing all events on a single save, but that's obviously a lot of bloat for the set and not preferable. As far as challenge is concerned, we have achievements to beat each boss damageless, which is pretty standard and gets the job done. The fact that the bosses are so easy is not a fault with the achievements, but more a fault with Tomba's general difficulty. For another challenge, we have jumping for flowers inside the cave, which sounded significantly more dangerous than it was. I think this could have been improved by restricting the player's use of the parasol. Maybe even more achievements related to traversing areas without taking damage, without the parasol, or within a certain time limit could have been fun. The achievement Ready to Race bugs me in particular because there's nothing noteworthy about starting the motocross as an optional activity. There could have been something for winning any of the medal challenges, or creating a unique time to beat, maybe finishing the race without hitting a pig or something. It's inoffensive, but when the achievement pops, there's no real satisfaction. The dog with special powers was highlighted earlier as being possibly missable, but without a missable tag on the site. The author said as much themselves in 2021, but it's not been fixed yet in 2024. Upon closer investigation, it seems the same is also true for Treasure Collector, because there's a chest in Dwarf Forest that must be dropped by pulling a spore, and the spores disappear after beating the blue evil pig, making it potentially missable. Overall, the set is pretty solid. It covers the basics tracked by the game itself and then some, like collecting every chest and some boss challenges. However, it's missing a bit of its potential to highlight things for new players and let veterans push themselves. Many of the achievements are directly tied to completing certain events, but are worded in such a way as to reward your efforts rather than the simple completion of the events, which gives the set a bit more personality. As one final bonus before we end the video, the special edition for Tomba is now out, so we have another achievement list we can compare to. When looking at the special editions list next to the one we just completed, we'll find that there is a lot of overlap between the set's progressive achievements, which is somewhat expected. However, the special edition only rewards you for the first of the 4 Old Wise Men. A few notable ones where the wording implies they might trigger earlier include 7 missing dwarves, math lessons, and 5 golden items. When compared to the other set, these obviously cover the same in-game events, but the descriptions make it sound like they're awarded before the event turn-in, which is how the Retro Achievements set does it, though I can't confirm this for sure until I play Tomba Special Edition. We also have an achievement for getting a gold medal rather than starting the motocross course, which I think is much more preferable. There are 2 random achievements for completing events with no particular rhyme or reason as to why. There's really nothing special about either of these, you don't get anything in particular. And then these ones, which I think validates my predictions just a little bit. We would have had a bingo with one of the experience ones. Damn. And that's all, folks. What did you think of the video? Did I go into too much detail about Tomba, or not enough? Did you like the bingo segments, or did you find them distracting? And if you enjoyed them, how would you like to see them improved? Either way, I hope you'll let me know what you liked or disliked in the comments below. Leave me your suggestions for more Retro Achievements games to play just like this, and subscribe so you don't miss out. If you're a fan of Tomba, then please show your support by getting Tomba Special Edition. Not a sponsor, just a fan. Take care.